Salute is a program for and about men and women who have served our country. Our program includes news about the laws that affect veterans, information on benefits and services, and news from veterans organizations. And now, our host, Bob Peters.
Hello and welcome to Salute. I'm Bob Peters, your host. My guest today is a gentleman who personifies hero. That's the best way I could say it. He's not only a hero, as you'll find out, but he's also a gentleman with a good sense of humor. Thank goodness. Mr. Frank Ellis. Nice to meet you, sir.
Likewise.
I'd like to tell everybody a little bit about yourself. You live here in Lake County now, and you were a Navy pilot, fighter pilot. How did you get started in the service? Was it a childhood ambition, or?
I took flight lessons when I was in high school in Ohio, soloed, and thought, wow, is this neat? But those lessons were costing $10 an hour.
Wow.
Couldn't afford that. And I didn't give it too much more thought until getting into the NROTC unit in the University of Colorado, and one of our quote-unquote cruises in the summertime was Corpus Christi, Texas, where, you know, in the service you're not supposed to volunteer for anything.
Yeah, believe me, I know.
We want someone to volunteer to ride the ejection seat trainer. No one raised their hand. I did. And that was neat. And the officer in charge of us midshipmen said, for doing that, you get a jet ride tomorrow. Nobody else here does, but you do. What a ride. Oh my. And that, you know, that cemented my desire to get into aviation. Mm-hmm. Naval aviation, since I was already Navy ROTC.
Yeah, well, that didn't mean you had to go into the Navy.
No.
We just had the ROTC here. The gentleman was in the Air Force, and he had two of his cadets here. One went into the Marines, and one went into the Army. Or is going into it, I should say.
Oh, okay. Well...
But you were set on Navy.
The only reason, when I got to the University of Colorado, you know, the draft board was sort of breathing down our backs. And I went to each one of the ROTC units, and no offense toward the Army or the Air Force, but literally, if you could walk through the door, they would take you. The Navy said, not that easy. You got to pass a test, and you've got to be interviewed. Then we'll decide. So, they must be special. That's what I'll try.
Well, things have changed since then, Frank, because when I went in the Air Force, I had to take a test, too.
Good.
So I guess I was special.
Good, good.
Anyway, so you enlisted, you went in, and what year did you go in?
1956.
56.
Of course, I was in ROTC for 4 years prior to that. 56, started flight training in Pensacola.
And you were good enough to give me your bio and an article from Foundation magazine that was very interesting. So I just want to mention a few of the things, your awards. The Public Service Award from Mutual of Omaha, Distinguished Flying Cross, Golden Plate Award, Kitty Hawk Memorial Award, one of the 5 young men, outstanding young men for, in California, 1966, one of the 10 outstanding young men in the nation in 1967. And it goes on and on and on. You printed a book, you wrote a book. I guess you were in Life, True. You're even in Good Housekeeping.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, well, that get in there. And you did a TV show, Survival, with James Whitmore, right?
Yes.
So now you're
Not
doing,
with him. He
Well,
narrated it.
oh, he narrated. But now you're doing one with Bob Peters, so you put that in there too, all right?
Well, you see, I get the real person this time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you wrote a book. I'd like you to tell us about your story and your changing experience, your life-changing experience that you had. And I'd rather let you tell it than I don't want to tell it, because I think it's best that people know from you.
My Navy career up until the time of the accident was just truly a dream come true. Partly because of the girl I married. Christine was born and raised in Pensacola, where we met, and is just a phenomenal human being. I won't go too far there or I'll get too emotional. But anyway, flight instructor in the Navy, then in an all-weather night fighter squadron on the carrier Midway. And with the next set of orders, I really had folks working for me at Washington to help me fulfill my dreams of getting into test pilot school as a stepping stone into the space program.
Yeah, you wanted to be an astronaut, I read.
Boy, did I. And that was all going well until my mother's birthday in July of, what was that, 62. And everything changed in a matter of minutes.
Yes, you had to make a decision that actually was a life-changing situation for you, but a life-saving situation for a lot of people. And that's what makes you special, that you did what you did.
You know, Bob, previously in the squadron, when I was a safety officer, I gave a brief to all the pilots, and the subject was, what do you do when your aircraft becomes disabled over a populated area? We all know the right answer. Walking down the passageway of the ready room afterwards, one of my squadron mates said, that sure sounds good, but I know what I'm going to do. I'm jumping out of that thing. And I thought at the moment, boy, I just hope I have whatever it takes not to do that. And we never know until you're confronted with it.
Yeah.
So I'm pleased that it turned out as it did.
Well, I'll tell the viewers that what happened was you lost trim. Now, that's what it said in the article. That's the ability to control the plane, is that?
A part of the trim system, it was the nose position of the airplane, which went to full nose down.
Yeah, so you were headed full nose down, and I saw the reenactment on the DVD that you let me borrow, and there was a mobile home park there, and you could have ejected before that, and that plane would have gone into that mobile home park, but you made that life-changing decision and life-saving decision, and you managed to hang on to that thing and get it over the trailer park and eject. But it was kind of a little late to eject.
It was 60, they determined, the accident board determined it was about 65 feet above the ground, with just too low. And by the grace of God, I survived that accident, because I definitely should have died in that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons when in the Catholic hospital in Oxnard, when I looked down at the foot of my bed, this was when I was alert enough to realize what was going on.
Yeah, you don't remember anything after the crash. I mean, being transported to the hospital. You just woke up in the hospital, correct?
I remember a huge fireball. That's which did exist, of course, and I sailed through that in the ejection seat. That is the only thing I remember. But in the hospital, I noticed that sheet sloping down like that, and I thought, I bet you those folks have that right foot down flat on the bed. This is pretty good thinking, isn't it? This is Navy thinking.
Oh, I see.
Air Force is
We're
different.
going to go round and round, aren't we? But I'm going to let you tell your story.
And I thought, gee, they're working on that foot to fix it for me. That's good. But I better check. I picked up the sheet. Oh, dadgum, it's gone. And that was about the extent of it. I was so thankful to be alive, because I shouldn't have been.
So you had a lengthy stay, and continue on with the story.
I was in the Catholic hospital in Oxnard, California for 2 weeks with my precious wife, who was expecting our third child any day. We had 2 little ones at home, ages 3 and 2, with another wife in the Navy wife in the neighborhood taking care of them. And I was just so afraid Christine would need to deliver while we were in Oxnard rather than at home. That was one big worry. The other big worry was, how do I get a grape popsicle? Oh boy, they couldn't find one, so they made one at the hospital. Things were kind of touch and go there. And then by the end of 2 weeks, it had improved enough so I could be airlifted to the Naval Hospital in San Diego. I was in a wire stretcher via forklift into the cargo bay of a transport. And Christine got to sit right beside me. And as the pilot added full throttle to take off, I looked up at her and I said, gee, honey, isn't it neat to be flying again, even in this capacity? I know that was bad omen of what was to come for her. So then at the Navy Hospital in San Diego, they tried for 2 months to save the left leg. But I was just getting weaker and weaker and thinner, and quite a bit of pain. So I was so glad they amputated when they did. And almost immediately, I thought, wow, they've had a change of dietitians in the kitchen. This food is tasting wonderful. Wasn't that way before the amputation.
No. And then in the article I read all about your story, you kept a sense of humor. I mean, you've gone through this experience where you've had both your legs amputated. You also had a broken back, and all kinds of, you had some burns and everything. I mean, but you had a sense of humor. And there's one story that in there about when they wanted to dispose of your lower extremities. Do you want to tell that what you did?
This was at the Naval Hospital in San Diego. A nurse came in for me to sign a release form, releasing my foot to the hospital. And I looked at her with shock in my face, and I said, no, I can't do that. Didn't they tell you? We're having the ones sent down from the hospital in Oxnard, and I'm going to get them bronzed and make bookends out of them. She was horrified.
Hey, you're an amazing man. So then the doctor came in and said, hey, Frank, cut it out, right?
The doctor came in and said, Frank, quit harassing my nurses, sign the form. Which I did, of course.
Yeah. But also after your recovery and you were fitted for your prostheses, your dream wasn't over for you of flying, right?
Oh, no.
And tell us about what you went through. I've seen the video with you water skiing, and I might let you talk.
I just felt I needed to do as many physical proving things as I possibly could. So I just started doing things like Navy water survival, knowing the doctors would say, yeah, but what if your legs were blown off, your prostheses, your artificial legs were blown off? You wouldn't be able to do that. So I went through it all with my legs parked on the side of the swimming pool so that I could dispel that argument before it came up. And I would love to say I ran through the Frogmen's underwater demolition team's obstacle course on Coronado, where we lived, but I didn't. Running was not too good at that stage. But I walked through all the obstacles, and that went well. Went water skiing, and that went well too. But oh, the broken back hadn't healed well enough. That kind of hurt. Then negotiated with the San Diego skydivers to make a parachute jump, because I was sure the Navy would never let me do that. So I made a jump with the San Diego skydivers. Now this is the only time that Christine said, honey, you're nuts. You know, you've jumped out of an airplane once. That's when you had to. Now you're going to jump out of an airplane by choice with these two artificial legs? No, that's not smart. But I felt I needed to, and our plane load was unbelievable. The pilot was a Marine Corps enlisted guy who'd been doing a little too much celebrating the night before. The seat beside him on the front was removed, and a fellow who had had trouble controlling his chute the week before was sitting there on the deck. Behind him, back seat, was our jump instructor, who had his leg propped up on the pilot's seat in a long leg cast. He'd broken his recently. And then behind the pilot, this guy with two artificial legs. You know, something like Ripley's Believe It or Not. But that all went fine and dandy, except in an effort to protect my prostheses, I hit my thigh and my hip pretty hard. And when I hit the ground, I twisted my right foot about 45 degrees. And because those feet were just bolted on to my shins.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it till I started to walk off the field. And it's going, sat down in the field. The drop zone was a cow pasture. Sat down in the field, and straightened that thing up, and those people are on the fence that were watching. They were just goo-goo-eyed, and they had to be thinking, ooh, they're making these San Diego skydivers tough these days. And with my later blue thigh and hip, I got no sympathy from Christine because she knew I shouldn't have done that. But it was, I thought it was necessary.
Well, I kind of agree with your wife. I'd like to meet her, by the way. In your article, you talk a lot about your family, and it's an amazing bond that you guys, I mean, it's really a wonderful family from what I read, and she's been there for you, because after you're doing all this for one reason, to prove to the Navy that you could still fly.
Safely.
Safely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And really, she was, you know, she didn't want me to. If she had had the choice, she would have said, please don't. But because of her heart being what it is, she knew I would never be comfortable with myself if I didn't give it the best shot I could.
Yeah. Yeah, I sense that.
And of course, that's why we've been married for 51 years plus now.
Wow. She should probably have a lot of awards written here for putting up with you.
Yes,
you know?
yes, she should.
So,
oh, by the way, Bob, when I left, she said, honey, please be a gentleman. Don't do anything crazy. So I have to be semi-good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you're not, you went through all these things to prove to the Navy you could still fly, and you did get back on flying status.
Yes.
You want to tell us about the flying status and all that, and what transpired there?
In the Navy, there's 3 categories: medical service group 1, 2, and 3. 1, no restrictions. 2, no combat. 3, got to fly co-pilot, so to speak. You don't have to be the co-pilot, but you've got to fly in an airplane
With
that
two
at least
pilots.
has a co-pilot.
Yeah.
Going through all the tests at Pensacola the first time, the board recommended medical service group 2, and I was elated because I knew I could work my way into group 1 easily. Bureau of Medicine and Surgery in Washington said, no, 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 we don't like that. So Frankie Boy was ordered back to Pensacola to go through the tests again. It was wonderful. They went so well. A doctor, an orthopedic doctor, who had said, I had no business even being there, being evaluated the first time. The second time, I asked the captain in charge of Special Board of Flight Surgeons, there just fortunately happened to be an aircraft carrier tied up out there. I said, do you think we could let that doctor and me go out on that ship, and we'll be down below deck in our staterooms, and we'll simulate general quarters. We'll see who gets up to the flight deck first to man his airplane. Well, in a situation like that, I have these legs on, take my pants off and just scoot them down over my legs. So boy, I'm ready to go. You know, sort of like you think of a fireman doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I beat him, and he was a total convert. It was wonderful. And things like that just kept happening that went so well. But the second go around, they recommended medical service group 3, and I couldn't believe it. So then, try for the astronaut program.
Yeah, just put me on a rocket. It's got 1 million pounds of TNT and blow me up to the moon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. But that's good.
Because as an amputee walking on the moon,
Yeah.
how neat, how easy.
Yeah.
So going to postgraduate school, the information came out about the Apollo program. and the requirements. I read it. I met them all easily. Of course, they didn't have anything in there about, we'd rather not have any amputees. So I had to call my detailer in Washington and ask him if there's any reason why I can't apply. And he said, "Oh, Frank, I don't believe you. Call me back in a week and I'll have the answer." And I did, and he said, "No, there's no reason you can't apply." So I did, and in the section where it asked for height, I put adjustable, because I really thought, you know, and in the remarks I said, I think this would be an advantage because of capsule design limitations. Same thing for weight.
Yeah, you put down, I read your article here, as far as height goes, anything from 4'6" to anything I want, depending on how big I want my prostheses. And same with the weight, it's adjustable, 136 to whatever.
On that subject of height, shall I show you how short I can be?
It's totally up to you, sir.
Okay. Please don't steal my legs. I need them when I leave.
Now, you assume you were bad-mouthed in the Air Force? Here you go.
Payback time.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that's how tall I am.
Yeah. Well, you're giant in my eyes, but get back in the chair, pal.
Without breaking anything.
You know, I read about, some people say, well, it's a handicap, and you're not handicapped. You don't consider yourself handicapped. I shared my thoughts with you about my mother. My mother was born with only one hand, and there was nothing she couldn't do, which I've told everybody. My cousin one day asked me about, asked my mother, "Don't you feel bad? There's some things you can't do." And I said to that cousin, the only thing my mother can't do is go to the men's room. But if she decides she wants to, she's going. And that's the kind of attitude with you, my friend. Your career with the military, once it ended, you went into financial planning, right, and real estate. And you have an island in New York called Ellis Island.
You weren't supposed to mention that.
Hey, listen, I thought maybe I'd sell you a bridge I got in Brooklyn. I got it cheap.
I'd be gullible enough to buy it.
Yeah. So,
you know, Bob, there's two things I'd like to leave you with. Number one, Christine is the true hero in all of this stuff because of what she did as an expecting mother and then following that. And number two, often the Lord doesn't get the credit deserved. I went through all of this with no gait training, learning how to walk, no physical therapy, and not a second of depression. Now, when I share this video that I have with just little school children and ask them, is that normal? Even they say, no, it's not. It's not.
So
but
you've done public speaking and gone to schools and, yeah.
But that's just what the Holy Spirit can do for you to make these things possible. And I'm so grateful for it.
And we're grateful that you survived and you're an inspiration to everybody. Well, listen, I just got the word. Unfortunately, we're out of time, Frank, and I could spend all day talking to you. But you're a true role model, and I thank you for coming on the show.
You are very welcome.
And we have to say goodbye, my friend.
All right.
So to all our veterans out there, active military and their families, we think of you, and we'll see you the next time.
Let us know what you want us to present on our program. Just email lakefronttv@earthlink.net and type salute in the subject line.